11 people say they're coming. It looks like 10 are in here, so we can just go ahead and get started, and whoever is still lingering will join when they join, I guess. Welcome. Thank you for spending this evening with us. We will get through this as quickly as possible while still going over the important information. The main purpose of this particular meeting is to cover aspects of kitten season so that everybody knows. I am recording this meeting with my computer since I can't record on Google Meet, so that everybody who can't be here tonight can watch. So Stephanie Bound is going to have the floor for most of this presentation or discussion, whatever meeting. But Jillian and I are going to go over a couple of notes things just here to get it started, and then Stephanie Hubbard can jump in with any medical stuff as we continue going. First off, as you have probably noticed, we are adding extra case managers. Some of them are just case managing themselves, and we wanted to add them to the chat so they have the support of the rest of the case manager community. And some of them will be, case managing others as well. Those of you who have been with us for a long time have quite a number of cases, and you may find that we are redistributing some of those as time goes on. Please do not take that personally. We are trying to make it so that each of you doesn't have an overwhelming amount of cases, and you can really focus on the people that you do have and give them appropriate support. If you have any questions about that as time goes on, feel free to reach out to me or Stephanie or Jillian. But hopefully that will make your life easier and make sure that the foster parents that you help have good access and communication with you. I do consider case managers part of the leadership team, so just so you guys kind of know where we're at as an organization this year. Our goals going into 2024 were to finally hit the number 2,000 for adoptions and for intakes. We have been striving for this for like 3 years now, and always come up just a little bit short. We are on track to do that right now. Hopefully, if we can continue going at this pace for the rest of the year. Our intake numbers year to date are 1,083, and our adoptions as of about an hour ago were 968. So typically this time of the year is when our adoptions sort of swell because of kitten season. The beginning of the year and the end of the year tend to be a little bit slower. So if we can keep the pace going through the rest of the season and get these kittens adopted, we hopefully will actually reach that goal this year. All right, I am going to let Jillian talk. She's going to discuss just basic HQ stuff and stuff about scheduling. Maybe.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Just a couple of quick points. First one up is the Google Calendar. That should be your best friend when you want to schedule anyone to come in for vaccines. It's super important. Kendall and myself, when we go in each morning, we'll look on the Google Calendar to see what appointments we have for the day so that we can work into pulling what we need to do for those vaccines ahead of time as much as we can so that we're ready when people walk in the door with their animals to have them vaccinated. So please, if you should ever have to add an appointment the day of, please make sure you let us know in the case manager's chat that you have done so that we can look at the calendar again and then reassess what we have to get ready for later in the day. There is a way of putting it on the calendar, which is very helpful to us. It should have the animals' names and then what they're there for. If they're there for a 6-week puppy vaccination or 6-week kitten vaccination, that should be there, and then the foster's name as well. This allows us to know exactly who's coming. We don't have to look them up in SL. That causes us extra time. We are well aware of what needs to be given at each of the increments for 6 and 8 weeks. You don't need to put everything individually in the calendar, just what they're there for. If it's a 6-week appointment, that's all you need to put on there, and Kendall and I can take it from there. Generally, we like 30 minutes for vaccination appointments. For instance, when we're pulling 6-week kitten vaccines, that's 7 items that we're having to pull together for each kitten. So if you only schedule 15 minutes and you've got 6 kittens, that's going to take us much longer than that to get all that taken care of. So 30 minutes, I would say, for up to 4 kittens. Anything over that would be a 45-minute appointment time. Days and times to avoid when you're setting appointments, and I know sometimes some fosters can only come after work and what have you, but we have to try and make those as few and far between as we can. Jumpstart shifts are on Tuesday and Sunday, so no appointments between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on those 2 days. There should never be vaccine appointments before 12 p.m. on any day. Wednesdays, the 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. time frame is super bad, as we're doing intake at that point in time. And on Thursday, the same, 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., because we have fosters being returned for spay neuter, and that day is super hectic as well. Any day of the week, with the exception maybe of Sunday, well, that's not true, any day of the week, between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., it's really difficult because that's when evening rotation is going on. And typically in the evenings, if there's not any volunteers there, it's just going to be Kendall or myself there having to take care of the animals. And if we have to stop and do a vaccine appointment, then we're going to be late getting everybody their dinner, and then we're going to be late getting out of there as well. Completely understand that, like I mentioned earlier, some people have to come after they get off work. But if you could coordinate that with the manager on duty for that particular day first, that would be super helpful. One other thing with regard to fosters, if you could please verify that we have supplies on hand before sending fosters to us. We really don't want them to come all the way out there only to find out that we're out of wet kitten food or we're out of puppy pads. So if somebody is needing more supplies, just reach out to Stephanie or myself, and we can get in touch with Kendall if neither one of us are on site that particular day and see what is on hand and let you know if it's okay to send the foster out for supplies. Anyone have any questions on any of that?
Not a question, but before we jump into the next thing, on the Google Calendar, for those of you who are newer, when you put it on your calendar, that's not good enough. We can't see that unless we're following your specific calendar. You need to add an invite to the info@SFCVA calendar. That's the one that myself and Kendall and Julian and anybody else at HQ is looking at. So you put it on your calendar and add that info as an invite, and we should be able to see it.
Correct. Just add that email as a guest to the meeting or the vaccine appointment. Also, one other thing that's not related to the calendar is we're going to need to start having the case managers pay more attention to making sure that the animals they are managing have bios and notes in their profile. The bio, of course, is just, a basic rundown of if it's a puppy, if the foster has passed along any information to you about that puppy, it's super helpful in the bio. Any foster notes that are sent to you, those need to be put into the foster note area under the profile, so that can be pulled up when they go to the events, and it'll be on the back side of their kennel card. And it's great information for potential adopters to have, particularly like what type of food they were feeding them. That's a big question that we get a lot at events, and we don't always have that information on hand, so that would be super helpful. And also, we need to get photos from the fosters, and I'm talking about 2 different types of photos. The first set of photos you're going to want is for the profile. So that's showing the animal in their best light. But then there's photos that we can use on Instagram that don't have to be perfect photos. They can be fun. They can be the dog laying upside down or with its tongue hanging out. photos like that, Robin really would like to have for social media, for Instagram, and we can also use those types of photos on Facebook as well. But when she's asking for photos in the team page, she doesn't just want the profile pictures pulled from. She's asking for photos taken in the foster's home that are a little bit more fun and show the personality of the animal a little bit better. So that's the type of thing she's looking for with that. And of course, encouraging your fosters to post on the page updates about the animals they are fostering. Again, they can put photos there as well, and that also lets all of us see the animals and their personalities in videos or pictures, or in the explanations that the foster is typing out and putting in the post. So that's all super important as well. We've been lacking a little bit in the bio section for a lot of the puppies and kittens. We need to kind of start getting those taken care of a little bit better, because people are weird when they come to events. They think that the person they're talking to knows everything about all the animals, and unfortunately we don't. So any notes that are there for us to go over with them would be greatly appreciated and helpful to get them adopted. Any questions on any of that?
Cool.
Okay, who's next?
All right, back to me. I'm going to talk fast. So just about applications and scheduling for networks. Before you make your animals live, please ask your foster parents very specifically if they are interested and if they plan to adopt, or if they have somebody interested in adopting. We don't want to break hearts by putting an animal up on the website at 6 weeks when the foster parent had planned to adopt and just hadn't said anything. Frequently they don't tell us because we haven't asked, and then it's a problem. So before you make anybody live, just please ask them. Just a reminder that animals under 6 months can be made live at 6 weeks, as long as they have been in care for at least a week. Sorry, my dogs are going to bark for a second. Kittens, I think we're trying to make live at approximately 7 weeks, or about 2 weeks before they're going to be ready for adoption. If they're not medically ready for adoption, or they're like 3 to 4 weeks away from being 2 pounds, there's no reason to put them on the website. At that point, they're just filling the website, and now we've got 50 kittens available for people to look at versus the 20 that may actually be ready for adoption that week. Adult animals can be made live pretty much immediately unless the foster has indicated that they are considering adopting, in which case you can give them more time before making the animal live. Monday at 8 p.m. of the week of spay-neuter is the cutoff for that foster fail exclusivity. So that's the point in time in which they need to say, yes, I am adopting, or no, I'm not adopting and I don't have an adopter. Good Lord. And certainly you can have made them live previously if the person was not interested in adopting at all. Then you can go back to that 6-week rule. But if they had wanted more time to think about it, Monday 8 p.m. is your cutoff. That doesn't mean they can't decide later that week that they do want to adopt. If you don't have any other things going for them, if you have no other applications, certainly the foster parent can still adopt at that point. Our goal with all applications is to respond to them in some capacity within 24 hours, 48 hours at most, even if it's just to say something like, hey, we got your application. We have 5 other applications for this animal, or, just some kind of status update so that people feel like they're getting a response to us or from us as quickly as possible. And if they're the 5th application in line, which doesn't happen very often these days, then you can start asking them questions like, is there anybody else you're interested in? And if it's an animal that you do not case manage, feel free to pass that app on to the case manager that does case manage that new animal. I always recommend responding to a couple of applications at a time. If there's no red flags in the apps and they're all valid applications, there's no reason to wait for one person who may or may not respond to you for 48 hours. Reach out to multiple applications and just make sure that you tell them, hey, I'm reaching out to 2 or 3 applications. Whoever responds back to me is going to get that networked appointment. It does create a little bit of, urgency on their part to get back to you, and probably will yield better results. If you're, and I'm not talking about a weird behavior case animal or even necessarily adult animals, but puppies and kittens that don't have a lot of concerns when it comes to adopters. If there's a few applications that all seem equally great, reach out to all of them at once. If no one responds within 48 hours, move on to the next ones. We're not waiting on people to get back to us forever. Please remove applications from the queue as soon as you have responded to them in any way so that nobody else responds to them. And just a reminder that Thursday at 8 p.m. is our cutoff for networking. If we don't have an appointment on the network calendar at 8 p.m. Thursday, we will assume that animal is up for grabs and will be going to the open adoption event, or is eligible to go at least. All right, sorry, let me try to get Sabrina in here real fast. She's having link issues. Bum-ba-dum-bum-bum. Okay. All right, last bit that I'm going to talk about before I hand it off to Stephanie, just about foster to adopts. Some of you are case managing foster to adopts for the first time. If you have questions about that process, please feel free to ask Jillian. She's usually the processor that handles foster to adopts. Hang on. Jillian, what's up? She's got a question.
I was going to wait till you were finished.
Oh.
I was just going to let everyone know that any apps that come in for dogs that are at HQ to leave for myself and Kendall to handle, we'll set up appointments for those.
Good. Thank you. Okay, so back to Foster to Adopts. Foster to Adopt is a 7-day program for animals over 6 months of age that gives the adopter or the potential adopter up to 7 days to decide if they would like to adopt or not. Animals that go foster to adopt from a Saturday or Sunday adoption event, if you are case managing them, please try to get a decision before Friday PM or Saturday morning, because if they are not going to adopt, I don't want them to miss that whole weekend of adoption events and have to come back to HQ Sunday evening, and now they've lost 8 hours of opportunity to find another family. Yes, they get the full 7 days. I'm not going to force a Friday night decision if they took the animal on a Sunday, but if you kind of explain it, we just don't want them to miss out on other opportunities, and try to get that decision by Friday, that would be very helpful. If they can, or if you can go ahead and schedule it on the networked schedule, and Stephanie can process it on a Saturday morning, either remotely or in person. Either way is fine. Sonia, what's up?
Okay, the network schedule, is that yet another calendar?
It is actually on the spay-neuter document, the Google document, so it's one of the tabs on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's 10 to 12 a.m. on Saturday morning. They do all of the planned adoptions during that time. And Jillian, do you still have a question? Your hand is still raised.
How do I get rid of it?
I don't know. I don't usually raise my hand. I just start talking. Okay. If people are adopting remotely, or if you process it early during the week, please make sure that you put it on that Add to AME section. That is also on the network tab of the spay-neuter documents, so that we get PetSmart credit for that. And then, of course, we can grant FTA extensions on a case-by-case basis. The point of FTA is not that the animal and the person have decided that they are perfectly wonderful and everything is great and it's going to be amazing forever. It's just that they've decided it's a situation they are going to be able to handle, that they're willing to commit to. So if I send a dog that needs, a little extra work, or a shy cat into foster to adopt, by 7 days, you can generally say, yeah, I'm going to be able to handle this, or no, I'm not going to be able to handle this. Occasionally they need an extension. I typically don't mind, but kind of let me know by, at least that we would definitely need to know ahead of time by Friday or whatever. Okay, any questions about anything I just talked about before I hand it over to Stephanie? Cool. All right, Stephanie Mound, go for it.
Can you hear me? Okay, I haven't figured out yet the button on my laptop, which one is the mute. Hi. I'm going to bring up a presentation in a little bit about kitten case management. I did send out an agenda of everyone. It's kind of high level. Welcome to follow along with it, but everything's going to be in the presentation that I'm going to put up. I appreciate some of you who have taken on kitten cases who specifically said they didn't, like Jen, so thank you for doing that. Hopefully some more of you will feel more confident about taking them on. I understand. I personally don't like to take dogs and puppies because I don't really get puppies very well, and I've never had a puppy in my life, so puppies are just an enigma. So I appreciate everybody who kind of comes out of their comfort zone. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll get going.
Will it work?
Maybe I am.
Is it not letting you?
Do I not have share privileges?
You should. Let's see.
Let me see. Will it share now?
Yeah. Well, it should says you're presenting now, so hopefully.
Okay, so it should come up as does it say kitten case management protocols with cute kitten on it?
It does.
Okay.
I see it.
Awesome. All right, there we go. The other option wouldn't work. So I'm going to start off with following the outline here and just kind of talk when kittens are coming in to us on Wednesdays or whenever they make it in. The first thing that's happening to kittens is they're getting examined. They're getting checked to make sure that they're healthy, just like with dogs, puppies, cats, everybody else, making sure that they're healthy, they're getting their age-appropriate vaccines. Health concerns are being addressed, and they're being bathed with fleas. Most kittens, if not all of them, are going to have a flea bath, or they're going to be treated for fleas. Usually they all will be bathed. So sometimes your foster may be sent home with flea medicine. So that's something to keep in mind, is making sure that if they are sent home with flea medicine, that it is given to them once the kitten is dry. You don't want to give it to them when they're wet. It's not going to stick on their fur, and it's not going to move around in the fur. One of the biggest things that I cannot impress upon anybody enough is isolate the kittens. People, sometimes you just don't know any better. Your fosters will take kittens or cats or puppies, dogs home, and the first thing they do is they want to meet their resident animals. Really not a good idea. These kittens just came in. Intake has done a thorough exam, but that doesn't catch everything. Kittens come in with all kinds of nasties. So the best thing is to stick them into a bathroom or a playpen or something that isolates them, at least for the first week, while you can watch them, or while the foster can watch them and check them for diarrhea, check for ringworm, just things that you don't see right away that will become obvious while the kitten is in care. So please, one of the first things you need to say to your foster is, and I do it too when I give the cats to them, is, are you isolating your kitten? You probably haven't thought about this, but kittens carry yuckies with them, shelter to shelter, especially some of the kittens that we've had this year who have been surrendered to us from the street or from junkyards or something like that. They definitely are going to have some kind of yuckies because they haven't been previously transferred to us from maybe another rescue or shelter. So once they are in foster care, this is their milestones essentially. If they were born in care at 2 weeks old, they get dewormed. And that is an appointment that the foster does not need to make. They can come in, they can pick it up from outside, from the medical bin. They don't have to bring all of their kittens in there. Excuse me. The next one is 4 weeks, and they're given their intake exam at that point. So either they're transferred into us and they're at least 4 weeks old, or they're born in care, and then at 4 weeks old, everybody comes to headquarters, they get their intake, they get their names if they haven't been named, they're given their first round of dewormer. And that is an appointment. You definitely need to make an appointment on the calendar for that. 6 weeks, they get all kinds of stuff, like Jillian said. They're getting 7 different types of things to make sure that they're boosted. That is a long appointment that is necessary to make an appointment for that. So at about £1.50 is when they will get their flea treatment, and they can also get their microchip at that time. One thing to keep in mind, though, is not everything. It may be given to them at 6 weeks. If they're not big enough yet, or if they're not well enough, some things might not be given to them. So then that will be given at the 8 weeks or when they're dropped off. So like Jillian had said, don't worry about trying to wrap your head around every little thing that they've had, because headquarters can keep track of that. Just make sure when you're making your appointments, you're paying attention to your appointment times, and you're putting 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks. The rule of thumb is every 2 weeks, animal needs something, so you need to be keeping track of that, specifically kittens. As you have seen, we have had a round of coccidia after coccidia, so it's very important that they're on a record of getting their medical treatments done every 2 weeks. Kittens are, I would say that they're fragile and they're going to break, but they're really, they're too little, and if they get sick, they go quickly. They don't weigh enough really to kind of get through that. So alternate adoption readiness, minimum age for kittens to be spay or neutered is at least 8 weeks, and they have to be 2 pounds. Not every kitten is going to be 2 pounds at 8 weeks, and they're also not going to be ready in other ways. But the bare minimum is 8 weeks old, 2 pounds, 2 vaccines. Developmental, they need to be eating kibble on their own. They need to be using the litter box for the most part. They don't have to be perfect at it, but they have to know how to do it, and they have to be developmentally ready. The last thing we want to do is adopt kittens out who aren't eating kibble yet, and the adopter doesn't know, and the kittens are dying because they're not eating properly, or they're getting sick, or you gave me this kitten and it's not healthy. Well, that's because it wasn't really developmentally ready. So even though it might be physically ready, keep it until it's eating kibble. And that's one of the questions that you always need to be pounding into your foster's head is, are they eating kibble? And it's not, are they taking a bite here or there, but they would prefer wet. Are they actively eating it? If the foster were to leave only kibble out, would they eat it or would they starve? Health grid screening. They cannot be altered if they have symptoms of respiratory infection and they have diarrhea that's like explosive liquid diarrhea, and we'll go into that a little bit further. But for protocol, if they have sneezing, runny eyes, goopy, please don't bring them in. Tell the foster, the day of the return, which is the Thursday, how are their eyes looking? Are they sneezing? Do they have gunk around the nose? Are they shaking their head? Do they have obvious signs of respiratory or eye infections? In that case, do not bring them in. And then last but not least, socialization. Are they friendly? Are they ready to be adopted? Do they need maybe another week to socialize? Do they need to go to another foster to socialize? There's nothing wrong with if the kitten is just not working with one foster, shifting them over to another so that they're forced to socialize with other fosters, so that they're not being adopted out and then being afraid of their adopter and the person returns them because the cat wasn't socialized or the cat was feral or whatever. Okay, crash course in crashing kittens. Fading kitten syndrome, it's kind of that overhead syndrome for kittens, usually about under 4 weeks of age, where their health just rapidly declines, and it can be caused by various different things. It's lethargy, poor weight gain, and then eventually death if it's not identified. Fortunately, though, you can kind of identify things that aren't going wrong and turn it around if you react quickly. Hypothermia is probably one of the first things that you notice. A kitten is cold, it can't regulate its body temperature. You would need a heat source for that. Incubator, snuggle disc, pet safe heating pads. One thing that's really important is that your body heat alone is not enough. So just placing the kitten on your chest is okay temporarily while you're heating something up, but your body, typically external body temperature is going to weigh less than what the kitten needs. Hypoglycemia, another reason why kittens fade quickly is their blood sugar drops. They're not eating, they might be in shock, something's going on with them, they might have some kind of infection. So it's really important to get the kitten's blood sugar up really quickly in that case. And many times with my fosters, when somebody's saying, they just don't want to eat, they don't want to do anything, the first thing I say is, are they cold? No. Okay, well, let's give them a little bit of sugar and see what happens after that. And if the sugar helps and they're eating and they want to go on continuing to give them a little bit of sugar, I keep walking them through that. Anything more than that, if it's dehydration, the kittens come back to headquarters. Are there any questions so far? I'm trying to move through this so I don't keep everybody on forever. Nope. Okay. Dehydration, lethargy, vomiting, diarrhea. Ways to check for dehydration in kittens could be the tent check, where you're pulling the kitten's spur up, seeing if it tents in the back. You just pinch it between the shoulder blades and pull it up really quickly, and it'll either bounce back within a couple seconds or it'll stay tented, which is a sign of dehydration. Sometimes kittens who may be underweight have a lot of skin, so it's going to stick up anyway. So I always want to double check that by looking at the gums also. Pink gums, like in the picture, pretty normal. This is normal, healthy cat. Cats generally have paler gums than dogs. So you just want to keep that in mind when checking a kitten, that it's going to be a little bit pale pink anyway. But when you start to see anything that's paler or white in the kitten's mouth or gummy, you just put your finger on it, tap it. If it's gummy, like as if you had dry mouth and had gummy gums, that stickiness is indication of dehydration. When somebody reports back that they think that the cat's dehydrated, I recommend, let's get some Pedialyte or get other ways to get water in them. And that's just while I'm reaching out to case manager chat. So I say, do you have Pedialyte on hand? Let's try to get them to drink a little bit of that, put a little bit more water in their wet food, but at the same time, I'm in case manager chat saying, so-and-so's kitten is dehydrated, all signs point that there's something wrong, and usually the kitten either goes to medical foster or comes back to headquarters where it can be assessed for fluids. Infection, upper respiratory, that's usually going to sound like congestion. If it's not obvious signs like gooey eyes, sneezing, lethargy, then it could be a little bit of congestion. You can hear the chest rattling. Might stop eating or drinking. If the kitten can't smell food, it's not going to eat. So those are all things that need to be addressed too. If a kitten decides that it just doesn't want to eat at all, it's all of these other things that covered. Infection, parasite. So when kittens don't want to eat or when they have diarrhea, when they're lethargic, there could be a parasite payload going on. Could be roundworms, could be coccidia, could be something else, could be a gut infection. Kittens can get sick from anything, including environmental food changes. So there's things that we want to follow the diarrhea protocol by looking at the last time the kittens were dewormed. If they have been recently dewormed within the last week and they still have symptoms, then you want to move on to the next step in diarrhea protocol, which is then messaging case manager chat. My kitten has diarrhea, was dewormed a week ago. let's do next steps, and headquarters will fill medicine for your foster. So recognize the signs of illness. You want to monitor the kitten closely for lethargy, lack of appetite, diarrhea, vomiting, difficulty breathing. And these are things that you want to talk to your fosters about if they're identifying that something just doesn't seem right. One of the big things that I agree with the presentation that I had yesterday with the Animal Welfare League of Arlington is, do you always use your gut? If the foster thinks that something's not right, doesn't always mean they're being dramatic. It just means that maybe something really isn't right. So definitely dig in a little bit deeper with your fosters, even if it's redundant and frustrating. We just need to kind of have an understanding. We're not there, medical is not there at the house, so we want to kind of address what happened and why things are happening. If it's a particular kitten that doesn't seem like it's doing very well, isolate the kitten from the others. Make sure that it's warm and it has the ability to stay warm with a heating pad or a heating disc. Contact medical HQ team immediately. If something's not right, immediately put into the case manager chat that something's not right. Make sure you're tagging all the people that need to see that, especially on our case manager chat that scrolls a lot sometimes. So make sure you're tagging Stephanie H, make sure you're tagging Ryan and getting other people's attention so that they see it and they don't miss it. And supportive care until somebody can respond to you, or until the direction is given whether to take it to a medical foster headquarters. Make sure it's warm, hydrated, make sure they're getting the medicine that they're supposed to be getting. And then headquarters will decide whether or not it needs to go into medical or needs to go back. This is a list I took directly from the Fading Kitten Protocol, Fading Kitten and Fading Puppy Protocol, which are things that when your foster is notifying you that something isn't right, that you need to reach out. And specifically photos of the stool. It sounds disgusting, but it's pretty easy to look at a picture of stool and know exactly what's going on. So get a picture of that stool. When was the last time they ate and drank? What are they being fed? Some foods are a little bit higher in fat than others, like Fancy Feast is a little fattier, so sometimes there's a little bit looser stool on it. When did this happen? Did the kitten eat something? Were they just playing beforehand? Are they hydrated? What's the color of the gums? Is everybody or just one kitten? And then pass that on to case manager chat. Any questions so far? Cool. Communicating with your fosters. This is probably the most important part of this presentation, if you take anything away from it, is specifically with kittens who can go very quickly. You want to check in with them daily. What are they weighing today? Try to get that in grams. If they can't do it in grams because it's their scale doesn't go in grams, the case manager spreadsheet has a little kind of cheat sheet in the front that converts it for you, so you at least have an idea of what they're weighing. Are they eating wet food? Are they eating kibble? Are they drinking? What are these stools like? And I always say, is it Tootsie Roll, soft serve, or liquid? Tootsie Roll and soft serve are okay. Soft serve just usually means they're getting used to another food. Liquid definitely means there's an issue. And are there any respiratory symptoms? And do you have any concerns or questions for me? That is the biggest question that I think is really important, is sometimes fosters don't think to ask anything. So you want to stop and say, do you have questions for me? Do you have any concerns about the kitten? So never underestimate the power of asking someone if they have concerns, so that they can voice if there's something going on with the kitten. The kitchen scales that I give out and that we have at headquarters, they're very difficult to weigh a kitten on. They're small. I encourage all fosters, just stick a serving bowl on top of it, zero it out, and put the kitten in it. Then you can get a weight a little bit better. Kitten won't use the box. Make sure that the kitten has plenty of options. Lots of boxes around the room. Some kittens don't want to use boxes that their sibling was just in, so make sure that there's several different options floating around. If you notice a kitten going to a corner, put a box in that corner. And sometimes if they go on the floor, I'll scoop up the feces with tissue and stick it in the box. I always put pee pads under all of my boxes because sometimes they make it to the pee pad but not in the boxes. If they go on the pee pad, I cut the pee pad square out and I stick that in the litter box to help them smell their urine again. Kitten won't eat wet food. Sometimes kittens do not like to eat out of bowls. Just their whiskers get caught on the edges, their depth perception is a little bit off when they're this young, and so it's scary. Put it on a low threshold dish or on a paper plate, and sometimes that will completely change their perspective and they'll start eating again. Same with the dry food. Sometimes they will only eat it off of a paper plate or they will only eat it off of the floor. When you're transitioning from slurry to wet food and then over to kibble, sometimes I'll put a little bit of kibble in their wet food. I won't put a lot in there. I won't make it chunky, but I'll put a couple pieces here and there so that they're getting used to a texture change while they're eating. Another thing that I'll do is after they're used to eating wet food, I won't chop up the food so that it's small bites for them. I'll just kind of cut it in fours so that they're forced to chomp on it. And so they're getting used to moving their mouth and chomping at things, and it'll sometimes encourage them to want to pick up dry food and chew on it on their own. Kitten doesn't seem to be drinking a lot. First check, is the kitten okay? Sorry for my errors in some of this. Make sure the kitten is healthy. Is the kitten doing okay? Is it having diarrhea? Is there a reason why it wouldn't be drinking on its own? And then also consider the fact that wet food is 90% moisture. If they're not eating dry food, they may not be drinking a lot because they're getting enough hydration from the wet food. So if there's nothing wrong with the kitten that would indicate that they're dehydrated, then the foster may not see them drink water very often if they're only eating wet food. Tips for fosters to manage infections in their home. House litters separately. It's really important when you have multi-litters to house them in separate places, and that cuts down on the spread of disease, spread of infection, spread of anything else between litters, and then it makes it so much more difficult to get ahead of. So make sure that any fosters that are not related to each other are completely separated. Kittens who have respiratory infections or coccidia, wear gloves when handling them and changing the litter. Makes it a little bit easier to keep yourself clean, keep your environment clean. Remove the feces right away. Usually with coccidia, within a couple hours, it starts to spread. So if you can get the feces up and change that as quick as possible, you can slow down how often the oocysts are spread. Disinfect surfaces to the extent possible. I listen here using a peroxide-based detergent that's Rescue. Make sure it's properly diluted and cleaned up before kittens can have contact. And allowing cages and carriers, toys, and bowls to air dry if possible. Air drying with the Rescue solution on it helps kill everything. Clean all bowls daily. Avoid fecal contamination in water. Making sure your water bowls and food bowls are very far away from your litter box anyway is a good idea, but definitely when there's an infection outbreak, everything needs to be as far away from the litter as possible. Cleaning between litters, throw away things that can't be cleaned and disinfected. A lot of times when I have some kind of a coccidia outbreak, if I can't sanitize a fabric for some reason, our toy, it just goes in the garbage. It's not worth it to me to take chances. I can go to Amazon and order some more. So if they can't disinfect it, like it's not plastic, or if it cannot go in a washing machine and a dryer, throw it out. Clean areas from top to bottom, so that things that are falling down, it's getting sanitized as you're going down instead of from bottom to up. Make sure that everything, poop, urine, litter, saliva, all of that is removed before you disinfect. Wash bedding, towels, linens, rerun the load again with a little bit of rescue in there. I always, after kittens, I put a little bit of rescue with water in my my washer, and I run a clean cycle on that to get everything cleaned out of there as well in the hottest setting. Washing windows, I try to clean as much of my windows as possible. Sometimes you forget about that, but kitten will sneeze and it's on the window. And rinse all the surfaces after they've disinfected with Lysol or anything bleach, and really anything that is a disinfectant or a cleaner. Wipe it back down with water and let it dry to get any remnants of that cleaner off. Kittens have pretty sensitive lungs and everything else, and the last thing you want to do is give them some kind of a bacterial infection because of the leftover cleaners on the walls and surfaces. Milestones for kittens. For the first 4 weeks, their eyes are closed for the first week, and their ears are closed, and then they gradually open their eyes by week 1. Their ears start to unfold by week 2, and they're completely dependent on mom, and they cannot regulate their own body temperature. Behavioral milestones. They're usually sleeping most of the day. Almost all the time. Even as they get older, if kittens aren't playing for about an hour with each other, they're snoozing all the time. They briefly wake up to nurse. 5 to 8 weeks old, they're gaining weight, they're becoming more coordinated, eyes are fully open, they're exploring their surroundings, and behaviorally they're active, engaging in play, they're pouncing, they're battling, they're chasing, they're interacting, and they're socializing with each other. It's very important between 5 and 8 weeks that they're getting a lot of socialization from their foster. One of the things that I do when I do foster check-ins is I say, do you have time to socialize this kitten? And if they say, look, I really don't, I'm really busy at work, then okay, let's find another foster, because that's okay if we need to move to another foster. It's most important that the kittens are meeting their milestones, and not so much somebody's feelings aren't hurt. And there's ways to tactfully say that to them. If you don't have time for the kittens, that's okay. Let's move on to another foster, and we'll give you another set of kittens that don't necessarily need immediate socialization. There's people who are just bottle feeders that we have who only want to do bottle babies, and then when they want to wean, they want to send them off, and that's completely fine. And then there's people who only do weaned kittens and don't want to have anything to do with bottle feeders. So that's fine too. Just be open, ask pointed questions to your fosters. And that is it. One thing I do want to bring up that I did not bring up in here is coccidia. If you have a litter that breaks with coccidia, and let's say it's at 7 or 8 weeks, they need to stay in care for another 2 weeks at least, because they need to be treated again or they're going to pick it up again. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is if they were on a coccidia treatment, really the best idea is for them to repeat that treatment again, instead of scheduling them to go directly to spay or neuter. Bring it up in case manager chat, like, hey, these kittens were just treated for coccidia a week ago. Are they clear, or do we need to wait again? What's happening is life cycle of the parasite usually has a 10-day incubation period. So if they haven't gotten everything cleaned up, and it happens, it's not their fault, or not everything has been killed off, everything's going to hatch and there's going to be an infection happening again. So you have to kind of pick it up in waves. So just be mindful, make notes on your sheets that the kittens had broken out with the parasite infection. they're going to need to be treated again, or at least monitored for any symptoms of that occurring again. Questions? Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a question. I would just say, in that same vein, like, I would rather wait, if we have a kitten that's questionable on weight or its health has been up and down, and like, yeah, it's 8 weeks and yeah, it just hit 2 pounds, but, last week it had URI and 2 weeks before it had coccidia, and there might be a spot on its ear, and, it hasn't been a super healthy kitten. Like, it's okay to wait. If the foster can't keep it, we can move it on to another foster. That's okay. Some people are on a time frame. And that is perfectly fine, but it sucks on my end and for the animal and for the adopter to send out an animal that's, okay, it's been healthy for 48 hours, let's get it spayed, let's get it adopted. That's not what I'm going for. We want animals to be adopted out healthy and to set up them and their adoptive parents for success. There's nothing I hate more than dealing with unhappy adopters 5 weeks into their adoption. It should be a happy, exciting time in their lives. It's already a stressful time, too, because they're adding an animal to their family and adjusting to that, and having to deal with illness on top of that sucks. And, I mean, it sucks for everybody. And whether it's anybody's fault, it's not. The animal was healthy and we adopted it out. But if it's a shaky animal, I would prefer to wait and just make sure that we're sending out healthy, solid animals versus rushing them out the door.
And with fosters, another thing I meant to mention is you have some fosters who don't always give you. Sorry, am I echoing? Just me. They don't always give you weights, don't always check in with you. Sometimes, even though whenever I do fosters, I say, you need to do weighing every day, you need to check in with that. They're so excited about getting a kitten, and they forget all about it as soon as they get home. So the first thing that I do when I reach out to my fosters, especially if they're new fosters I've never had before, is I say who I am, and I say this is what I'm going to ask you every day, and this is what I expect from you, and this is the relationship that you and I are going to have. I don't say it so curtly, but so that they know that you're going to be checking in with them, and then they get into a rhythm. Most of my fosters that I case manage for more than a year or a couple months, they know that I expect the weights, and they just preemptively send them over to me. Some of them I have to kid glove a little bit, and that's fine. That's what you're there for. But definitely setting expectations immediately, I think it's going to be easier to communicate with your foster, especially with kittens, and making sure that they're getting weighed. Sometimes fosters who have been dog and puppy fosters, who might not have as much precision as somebody who's started as a kitten foster, you kind of have to remind them that it's not a puppy, it's a kitten, so you have to do this, and you have to monitor this, because if the weight changes by a couple grams, then the red flag's going up that there could be something going on.
All right. Stephanie Hubbard, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
No, I think Stephanie Bound did an amazing job. Very good. I'm so glad she's a part of the team and doing the team kitten. Like her with puppies, kittens for me. I enjoy the medical piece, so I love kittens, but I'm not a cat person and I'm a dog person. So I'm really glad that someone who loves kittens is doing that piece of it. And we're telling fosters to make sure they reach out to you guys, the case managers, if they have any issues. And then, of course, if it's a question you don't know the answer to and can't quite get a good, solid answer out of the case management chat, then we do ask that you kind of fly it up the flagpole to either Ryan or myself. And I tell everyone, if it is an emergency, please call me. My current job, unlike my previous jobs, I am unable to be watching my phone, and so I don't always check the messenger, but maybe 3-4 times a day, sometimes less than that if it's a crazy day with lots of meetings with doctors. So if you need me, please feel free to call me. Anybody who's been on this in this chat knows that I will answer the phone and I can help. I can definitely take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to, be there for you, answer some questions, and get things squared away. So that's all I really have to say. And I'm always here if you guys need me. Just please call.
Sweet. All right, does anybody have anything that they have questions about, want us to address? Doesn't matter what it's about, just anything related to case management or what we're asking of you or anything at all before we sign off.
Does everybody have access to the calendar or need to be shown how to use the calendar? You don't know how to access, or you don't have access to it, Christy? Okay, we'll get you access. Let me show you how to get into it. Everybody who's on who may not know how to do. I'm gonna share my screen just a second. Just make sure I can get in the meeting.
I think you should be able to, anybody that's using their SFC via email should just be able to add the info@calendar to your view without actually me specifically adding it. But if that's an issue, then I'm certainly happy to send you specifically, but I think Stephanie's going to show you how to do that. Maybe, baby.
Yeah, I think it did it, Amy. So you see your calendar here, just kind of going back, your calendar is right there. When you open up your email, it's right over here. Just click on it, and I just make it bigger here. And you can set up your calendar however you want it. I just have it week to week, once you go back to June. Over here on this ribbon is where you should see other people's calendars, other calendars, and so you should have access to at least the info. You want to make sure you have it turned on so that you can see it. So if you are going to make an appointment, say we want to make an appointment for today at 8:30, you just click on wherever time it is, and you can adjust the time if you need to. If you click and it just doesn't perfectly go to where it wants to. Make an appointment. 6-week kitten medical. Kitten name, foster name. At least so that they know who to expect when they can. Find your time. You have a time here, but that's not going to work. I want to do 8:15. It's going to be 6 kittens, so I'm going to give them about an hour to get everything done. If they get it done early, great, but I at least want that hour to show up in the event that they need that full time. Add your guest is really, really, really important. Make sure you're putting info on here. And sometimes I'll even send one out to my foster so it goes up on their calendar and they don't forget about it, especially if I'm doing it a week away and I don't want them to forget about it and I might be in a meeting at work and I don't have time to mind after them. And then you can add some descriptions if you need to clarify anything, something in here you need to call HQ's attention to. Otherwise, you hit save. Do you want to send it to there? Send it, yes, and it'll show up here for you, and it'll show up in whatever color you have selected that somebody from HQ hasn't seen yet. Once they agree to it, you'll get an email back that it was okay, or they'll decline it for whatever reason it's not going to work out. Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, and yes, Jen, I recorded this, so I will send out the link to it or whatever. I guess I'll put it on YouTube or something so everybody can watch it because I'm not doing it on Google Meets. But yeah,
Thank you.
that'll be available to everybody, of course. But if nobody has any other questions, I will adjourn this meeting, and I appreciate everybody's time. And please feel free to use all of us who live and breathe this 24 hours a day, whether we want to or not, as a resource. Thank you. Have a good night.